And we're back for episode 2 of the
It is
Rurouni.
Monday, October 16th, 2023. We're here with the OG, the '09 Game Hunter, the Game Hunter, not just your average everyday Game Hunter. And we're going to be talking about Kenshin, a Rurouni Kenshin, which is episode 2. And the episode was really good. It's Game Hunter's favorite episode of any anime ever. And we're excited to be talking about it to you. So take it away, Game Hunter. Yeah.
We've been trying to get him to take his meds. It's not happening. We are like several episodes into this. I've tried talking to his wife. Apparently, she's tried getting him to take his meds. She's actually told me she lost an arm.
I don't only take the meds when I feel bad.
She pretty lost her arm trying to get you to take the meds. It's like
I was hungry.
You ate her arm?
There was nothing else around. She wouldn't feed me. I said, "Wife, give me something to eat," and she didn't feed me, so I had to do something. What do you do when you don't have food?
Go get food?
That's what I did.
No, you took her arm off.
And not the whole thing. I left a stub.
That's basically the entire arm.
Now you're just mincing hair. Mince.
I don't know about you. She just started to give you a hand and you took the hand. How you explain that?
She offered it. She said, "Let me give you a hand." I made a hand sandwich.
This is horrible because considering that the end of the episode talks about you bring up hands and fingers missing. That was totally unintentional.
And then I made a hamburger.
That's a stretch.
What, hamburger?
Yes. It kind of works, but it's still kind of a stretch.
I think you're just being mean.
Okay, we're here to talk about episode 2 of Rurouni Kenshin.
Episode. You're spending so much time talking about eating hands and cannibalism and stuff like that. Just, honestly, if we're being completely honest right now,
listen here, Mr. Boat.
You're the one. I didn't even say anything about eating body parts. So, you came out of that. You came out of the gate with that.
And this is why we try to give him to take his meds. It's unfortunate it has not worked yet. But okay, onward with the episode review. But I want to actually guys preface a little bit too. Again, I already know a bit about the show already. I'm just going back through it again and actually getting reacquainted. I was just shocked that Yahiko was introduced so early. But I guess based on what I definitely know about his character, I'm guessing it makes sense he's introduced so early. Very good characterization of him. I actually liked his characterization. Punk kid that just pickpockets people. Kind of like in New York. Well, actually,
did you just make stereotypes about New Yorkers?
I would say anywhere in the world, but I don't know if pickpocketers exist in too many places.
I've never been pickpocketed in New York. I don't know what your experience was, but
I haven't been to New York, so I wouldn't know if it was a pickpocketer up there. I just suspect that maybe there is pickpocketers in New York. Is that wrong?
Yeah.
I'll take that back.
It's really wrong, actually.
But actually, is there any... Of all the anime we've recently reviewed, is this the only one where there was a character that was a pickpocketer?
I
feel like there has been another show, right?
I can't think of any other pickpocket, to be honest with you. You'd think it would be a trope.
I feel like I know it's a trope, but
I can't think of any other time someone's been pickpocketed.
But I guess again, this anime, this show IP is from an older era. This isn't a new show, quote unquote new. It's new as in it's getting a second chance to live new. So
if I had to pick a show that had a pickpocket, I'd probably pick Shaman King. but I
I
don't
don't
think
think
Sean.
there's a pickpocketer in that show. Though, I mean, based on, like, I would think I remember that too, but I don't remember a character that did that.
I don't either. But that show had kind of the messier morality of some of the characters, and they were all over the place. You would think they would have had maybe a pickpocket, but that's the only thing I can think of.
If I had to pick a character from that show that was a pickpocket, I'd probably say Yamada, the short kid, but even that's a stretch because he isn't characterized to be indecent. That's kind of weird considering he's short, but okay. Not saying all short people are pickpocketers, but for anybody who jumps on that train,
Oh my gosh, what are you saying now?
nothing. We're just moving on. Moving on. The very beginning episode, we kind of go back to harping on something that the kind of harped on at the end of the episode. And these notes, I wanted to clarify something for my co-host here, and for a lot of people who are probably really confused at his sentence of like, okay, I'll just be 30 then. Apparently, this is what I researched, and this is a quick type into Google too. Kenshin was initially supposed to be 30 years old, in the initial conception of his character, but an editor, that the creator took, not direction from, but advice from, mentioned that like this is gonna be directed at teenagers, so the creator brought the character's age down to 28. I still kind of find that interesting, even with the whole idea that they're still kind of directing this thing at teenagers. I gotta say, he's probably the oldest shonen protagonist I think I've ever seen. I mean, Dragon Ball Z has older characters, but like we grew up with those characters, so I guess tit for tat there.
And they also like older. They might be older, but their age was so ambiguous because they stopped aging during their prime.
Well, the Saiyans did, but yeah, I mean, I mean, the point still stands. Yeah. But still, it's like, he just like that. I still kind of find it interesting that in a direct attempt to take advice from his editor, here's her editor. You know what? Right. Assume gender. Let me just find out.
Wait, we're assuming genders now?
No, we're not assuming genders. I need to find out something really quick, because when I'm talking
Right.
about the editor, I want to make sure that I'm talking correctly. Here let's see here. Written by, I guess that would be, no, that's not what I want. Get back here. Oh, that's interesting.
What is it?
I mean, before I say this correct, manga. Wait, is it he or she? He, okay. Is this? Go to the original. I want to know what the source material really quick is. Okay, so the mangaka, the creator is he. He goes by he. Oh, he's 53 years old. Huh, interesting. Nobuhiro Atsuki. I don't think. Geez, he's actually as well known as the Shaman King creator.
Oh, really?
That's actually kind of disturbing. But no, what I found interesting, this remake, the writer, if you believe this, wrote for Read or Die.
Read or Die. That's cool.
This person wrote for Reader. That's interesting. I was gonna say weird, but no, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
It doesn't feel a lot like Read or Die.
Music is noted for authoring serious compositions of works as Read or Die. He probably wasn't all that involved. He probably wasn't all that. The writer of this anime probably wasn't all that involved. He probably wrote a little bits. Maybe something will like come up in this as we watch it. Maybe that will remind you of Read or Die. I don't know. I'm
And
just
it's not impossible. Read or Die just is it's full of magic and sexual tension and conspiracies. And this is like more like historical fiction.
I suspect that we'll start slowly getting away from historical fiction at some point. Just start going into full fiction, but
Yeah.
okay, that's the right way. I did not know that, but as a novelist, okay. Oh, Rita, that was a novel. Oh, maybe that's what it is then. No, he probably you've worked for the manga too. Okay, so whatever. Well, whatever it is, maybe you'll be on the lookout for it now that you know apparently he was involved. Okay. We'll get that out of the way. So, oh yeah, the age thing. I guess it's best I can do is like I was curious because I don't remember as a long time ago his age ever being brought up. But now that I'm thinking about it, they probably did, and I completely glossed over it because it probably didn't really all that matter that much. He still technically doesn't look like his age. That's typical of any anime. Period. You know, they'll look younger. But typically speaking, in real life, that's kind of what people do now. For whatever reason, some people just look younger than they actually are. So I mean, it's not really unrealistic. It's just that it's one of those like, you pass over it because it's so common now. But with that, I guess we can start slowly progressing through this episode. Now this is after Kenshin, protects her her establishment from the fake Baxosai, and now Kenshin's apparently doing housework for her to I guess as he's staying there as for payment because he is, as Jock so eloquently put last review, he's a hobo. I'm sorry, you just had to poke at you for that one. But
It's not though.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that you eloquently put that he's a hobo.
He's a Ronin without a cause.
But we found out why he's a Ronin about a cause in this episode. But before we get to that, but we see that he's doing housework, and now him and Kaoru, it's probably how to pronounce it. I'm just gonna be just for like trigger warning. Probably gonna be butchering her name till like the final episode. I'm calling it now. But,
There's so many like names in here that I'm just never gonna be able to pronounce. Like the guy whose name is spelled Gaskeh, Gaska. Like I don't know. There's so many names in here that like I'm just never. Some of them I can kind of guess, and then some of them are just Myojin, Myojin. Like you know what I mean? Like sometimes I'm just gonna have to take my best guess.
mm-hmm.
Ujiki, Ujiki. I don't know.
So I'm looking for like. That's weird.
Sir.
That's the Japanese. I'm just trying to figure out comment like what's the pronunciation. That's weird. Why is that there? I don't even recognize his name. What? Oh, that's just. Wait, is that her? Oh, that's her actual last name. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
You don't need to know any of this. At least not right now.
Somebody almost spilled the tea. That's all I'm saying.
I didn't say anything. I just couldn't figure out her. Name. How you pronounce it? Pronunciation, please. All I need. Kaoru. That's apparently the pronunciation for that name. It's apparently unisex. Thank you, Google. I was looking for that.
Kaoru.
That's gonna sound weird coming out of my mouth because I'm American. But
Kaoru.
Kaoru is so weird. So I'm not pronouncing it correctly, probably. But Kaoru is with Kenshin, and they're walking through the town, bustling Tokyo, to do some shopping. Uh, Kenshin, as his usual, pretending to be dimwit self, is bumbling around. We get introduced to a new character as they're walking around. Yahiko, the guy whose last name that Jacques was trying to pronounce just a couple minutes ago. He pickpockets, he pretty much pickpockets Kenshin. I didn't know he was pickpocketing Kenshin. I thought he pickpocketed her because Kaoru, because I looked away for a few seconds and looked right back, and he was already in in the motions of stealing from them.
She caught him, and he was ready to let it go.
That's why I thought he pickpocketed her. That's why I thought, okay, but I mean, I already found out it was him that he pickpocketed. But yeah, she stops him, and they have an argument, and he calls her an old hag. And this starts the whole being younger kid insulting an older woman when they're not really that much different in age.
He really had kind of a Bulma reaction, didn't he?
But him or her?
She.
Well, again, this is apparently from like this is an older show, so yeah.
I mean, could you see Bulma reacting the exact same way? What did you say?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying this is an older show. I think that's honestly the best. I think I actually thought about Bulma when I saw that, which is hilarious. Again, I don't think we reviewed any shows where that kind of dynamic was happening. This is really weird. I've seen a lot of shows that have that in it, but I'm definitely not like, I don't think we reviewed that many. Oh god. Okay, moving on. but yeah, they have their little fight. She like they pretty much hands the money, the wallet falls on the ground. Kenshin picks it up, hands it to Yahiko, saying that, you know, you not in so many words, you almost got away with it, which is kind of weird to me, considering that I know Kenshin isn't daft. But I guess maybe he was letting him get away with it, considering I guess he saw through his guise, because he ends up saying Yahiko had the guise of a child, and he keeps calling him kiddo. And he had that little back and forth. I will say, and I'm not telling you how much this you probably agree with. I'm kind of reminded almost a lot of Vash in Kenshin, which is really freaking weird.
That is a Vash move. Vash would give the wallet to him.
Like, I'm reminded because he's so happy-go-lucky for no real reason. He's just because he's just happy to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kenshin, like, he pretty much gives him the wallet. Yahiko throws it back and is saying, "I don't need your pity," and then he storms off angry. And we'll see that kid later on. Again,
he's a descendant of a Tokyo samurai. He announces himself when they try to give him the wallet, and he goes to give it back. He died. He's saying his father died in the Boshin War, which I believe is the same war that Kaoru's father died in. So we're seeing another like example of the fading of the samurai. Like, he was a descendant of a samurai. His father died, you know, and Kaoru's father died. She's trying to continue on the legacy by running an empty dojo. He's also kind of like burdened by his, like, she wants the burden of her father's dojo, and she's ready to die for it, and she almost does. He is burdened by the debt that his father built up, and that's the debt that he has. He doesn't have any debt except that his father built it up and then died, and then the debt was kind of passed on to him.
Isn't that a trope too? The father builds up debt and leaves the debt on their son as they die.
Right, and now he has no way to make money except to steal. But Himura sees potential in him and gives him another chance, and is like, "Here, you don't have to steal it. You can just have my wallet."
Actually, I want to bring up a comparison. This is a show much later on in anime history, because these shows are so far like apart in years. The main character, Chainsaw Man, had that exact thing happen to him.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
But he turned out differently than Yahika. Well, ah, right
He
now then.
mentions, I know this is like skipping ahead a little bit, but the people that come out and talk to him, the Mr. Gaska and his henchmen that they never give a name to so far, that
One
are
thing,
trying to
you
make.
call them a Yakuza, so are you sure that they're in with the Yakuza?
Yeah, he says I'm done with it. I'm severing all ties to the Yakuza.
Okay,
All my ties to the Yakuza. He says it around 2016 ish. Um, the Yakuza, because I had no idea what it was, so it's not like I made it up and then Wikipedia'd it. But they're members of what is basically, it's a transnational organized crime syndicate that started in Japan.
I mean, they're the
It's
mafia.
they're
That's what they
they're
are.
like a mafia, and they exist. They started out in the 1700s, and they were growing. Like they were actually like this was a time when like this mafia was growing in numbers at the time that this anime takes place. Like they were growing in strength a lot, and they peaked in strength in 1963 when they had 184,100 members. I don't know how you find that out, how many criminals you have, but I think it's because you could register as a Yazuka and it wasn't illegal to do it, and I think it's still not illegal for some reason. They're known to be heavily tattooed, although I don't think that guy was tattooed. Um, Nobody's 100% sure about the origin of the organizations, but they had two classifications that emerged, and I think this might be why it's not illegal to register yourself as a Yazuka, is because one of them was a peddler, and they would peddle like crappy or stolen or illegal goods, like black market or scam goods or just chutzpah kind of garbage, which was mostly could be presented as legal. You know what I mean? Except for the black market part of it. And then the other half of them were that were active at this time. And this was the end of the Edo period when they were there, so they've been there well established from the 1600s to 1868. And we figured out that the closest year guesstimate for this is 1868. Was the Bakuto, who were basically gambling. They were gamblers and casino runners and stuff like that, but they also did. They were lower social standing because gambling was illegal, but they were also loan sharks. So they would take over abandoned temples and shrines at the edges of the town and stuff like that, and set up gambling houses, and they'd also do loan sharking. So what is most likely is the father was the victim of a loan shark. He could have been gambling too. You know what I mean? Like it's not impossible, but the more likely part of it is one way or the other, gambling or not. He was. These people are probably loan sharks that he's involved with.
No, sir. I was just looking up Yakuza. I mean, I know these people existed, so I know you weren't making up a word. I knew that the Yakuza existed. Again, Japanese nerd over here that likes Japanese culture.
Oh, you were familiar with him already. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was so confused. When it's like when he said like I did not know they used the word in there, and I feel like that's a word I would have seen immediately too. So I must have really was looking away again for a few seconds. But
Well, you know me at this point. I've been pausing like every single time I see something
yeah, I
like
need to
that.
start looking back when I get confused about something. But I did not even. That's. I mean, but if I'm being real honest, like it means it's obvious that they were Yakuza based on the way they were acting anyway. It just didn't dawn on me that's what they were supposed to be. Because I mean, the Yakuza that I'm familiar with are like the modern day in the black suit, glasses. They got a way of walking. At least within in fiction, they got a way of walking that you definitely know that they're Yakuza. But they, I guess one of them did, but they didn't come off as like I'm gonna break you or kill you or something like that. They just seemed like they were mostly there to, you know, bring fear. And
Yeah,
there's some Yakuza's in the United States. That's really interesting.
yeah, they're international. So they're very shrunk now. In 2022, they only had 11,400 members, and then 11,000 quasi members, whatever that means. But they're also like not only is their numbers shrinking, but they're getting older. So they like the average person's age at this point is like 54.2. So they're getting older, and there's fewer like young people that are getting involved in it. So it's sort of disappearing too, which makes it really especially interesting in this, that it's a disappearing race.
Huh. I guess before we move on here, this is interesting. I didn't even know about this. Well, not just with their peddling of like drugs. Apparently, they deal within some groups deal heavily in human trafficking, specifically Filipino women.
Yeah, that's certainly possible, right?
I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I never thought about it. But it's like, yeah, they trick young women and then they turn them into sex workers. Jeez. I wonder why they're. I mean, I looking up to you said they did. You don't know why they're still even around, but yeah, there is no reason why they Japan has not. They were trying to. The Japanese government was trying to impede revenue, but I'm guessing it just hasn't worked. There's no prohibition on them, which you think they would have already tried imposing a long time ago, but apparently they haven't.
Maybe it's too powerful to completely wipe out.
Well, I mean, with most of them being old, I'm pretty sure maybe what they're expecting is that they're just gonna wipe themselves out.
Yeah, or it's just easier that way to let them wipe themselves out and just put low pressure on them.
I guess I never thought about like why they're still around. To me, they were just like, okay, that's just a part of the culture in Japan. I didn't realize there were some over here, and apparently they're in California. At least some of them are. Oof. Definitely don't want to meet them in Dark Alley.
Yeah.
But talking about Yahiko there. I guess Yahiko. Again, I guess another thing. Speaking of the era of this show it's in. Again, they bring up the sword abolishment act, and it's like they bring it at the very beginning of the episode. I guess trying to like set the groundwork for what happens later on, which is pretty much Hamura, as he's going shopping for Kaoru for rice and a couple of things for dinner, he ends up getting stopped by the sword brandishing police, or it's a sword branding police, or I forgot the exact wording they used.
Sword bearing police.
Sword bearing police, but I think apparently this was something that was happening in real life. Sword wielding police. This sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, so the sword bearing police were
Kawaii. That's definite. Kawaii. I wish I could find like an actual pronunciation for this. This would really help me.
What really are you looking
at? I mean, like apparently this like the Japanese military. This is like what their actual name was.
I don't know if they're part of that. I think they're the sword bearing police. I mean, there were police that were like former samurai that would some former samurai were pulled over to the police and were allowed to bear swords because of their special status. I'm not sure if that's the case here, though. I don't believe it is. But they.
I mean, these guys in the show aren't, but sword bearing police specifically, they did exist. Yeah. That's what I was getting at. It's just I was trying to get the actual name because I did see what they were. It's either this guy was a chief of police, and then this is not this. They're just they got the name. Apparently, you see here as like the Satsuma domain samurai. They did mention actual like places in Japan, which this show's really good at actually referencing actual places in Japan. I've noticed.
I'm double checking. Hang on. No, I don't think I found anything about the sword-bearing police specifically. I thought it was interesting that one of the guys that they drew had two little rabbit teeth, and I thought and kind of looked rat-like as a result. And then we find out later in the episode that it's actually a band of. They're coming across as the elite swordsmen, but they're actually ruffians and rogues that were turned into a police band, and they were done so by imperialists which were they were ordered to like make these guys into that by imperialists. And they explain in the show that there's five categories of imperialists that are based on where they're born: Hitsin, Shozu, Satsuma, Toza, and then basically a category called Others, which is like Mito and Fukoma. And he is from the Satsuma, which Satsuma and Chosen were the two great factions of the Meiji government and the absolute authority in the military. So, like, basically, the local police had everything under control, had a peaceful way to get out of it, but the government, the leaders of the military ordered that they had a rough, like a harder group of people that would come in that were far less ethical, like when they Kaoru, when they're like, well, we're going to cut her clothes off and humiliate her if you don't draw your sword. And then the crowd had spoken out and they're like, we're going to arrest them and kill anyone who, like, you know, anyone that resists and stuff like that. So this is like just sort of like the military gave them like an order to like create this group, and this group goes over their head and they can't do anything about it because of their connection with Satsuma and the Satsuma imperialists, and they can't control them or do anything about them, and they're not really authorized to. And they just run out of control. The place is just run by like a mob right now. These people are clearly like have done stuff like this before because they mention it. You know, is he at it again? And you know, the crowd clearly has no love for them because they're cheering on, you know, Hiruma instead of the people because they hate them, you know. And there's no love for the sword bearing police either, because the sword bearing police are like, then just arrest them and kill them. So they do seem like they have some skill, not compared to Hiruma, who's basically invincible, but they do seem like they're not like without any ability whatsoever.
I mean, that's true. I think maybe this is an example of like there are going to be future characters or future character that are going to probably display fictional sword styles that, well, maybe not all fictional, but like some of the sword styles they're going to probably display. They're going to probably overly animate it. I'm thinking about one character in particular that I'm pretty sure people who are, if they're watching this or listening to this, probably know exactly who I'm referring to. But but uh but yeah, like it's interesting that you use sword styles here. The Hitsin Mitsurugi Ryu, can't believe I was able to say that, but not, I'm dead serious. Like, that's such a long name for a sword style, and he prefaces that with every attack like that has any significant damage to it. So you'll be seeing that a lot, but unfortunately, because this is Japan, they're gonna say it really fast and make it really simple. But Kenshin has shown that he's definitely outclassed them, every single one of them. I mean, he did not want to draw his sword, but he was pretty much able to take them all. He was able to take them all out relatively easily. But before that, after Kenshin actually does leave Kaoru to do her bidding, she ends up being stopped in the middle of the road by a police, I guess it would be our military guy, who apparently was a part of a movement before the abolishment of the swords happened. And Kenshin, well, in his past life, well, I should say past life, what he used to do before he changed to become a Rurouni, worked for. And essentially he's been looking for him for at least 10 years, is what he said. It's kind of crazy that she runs into him. It's like, that's interesting, a character from Kenshin's past. When this is going to be happening again and again. Hint, hint. But he ends up asking her for directions to the police station. She directs him. He ends up talking with the police sergeant there, and as in the middle of the conversation, one of his policemen, barges in, vault knocking, saying that we got trouble. There's a altercation happening in the middle of the city, and apparently says one man has managed to beat down all of the sword-bearing police that were sent down there. And they don't believe it. And as the guy who's been looking for Kenshin is about to leave, they mentioned that it was a red-haired individual who's really skinny and has a scar on his face. And the scar on the face is what triggered him to I guess to give a shock, I was like, is it really him? And we fast forward to Kenshin already beating them down, and then the guy shows up, and he is asking Kenshin to come back and fight for the Imperialist again.
So if I can step in here a little bit,
Sure.
this is Mr. Yamagata, and he's general of the Kahite, like you said. He's been looking for him for 10 years. That sounds like a long time, but this guy is actually a real life person that is Yamagato Arimoto, and he's the commander of the Kahite, um, which is a militia that consisted of 300 men. The men came from all different social classes. There were farmers, merchants, former samurais, samurais and others. And they were from the Chosu, which we've already established was one of the two like major branches of the military. So he's from, if you think about it, he's from the Chosu and the others were from the Satsuma, the sword bearers. So there's not necessarily any lost love from them because they're from kind of the rivaling branch of the military. And there were a few volunteers from the other domains, but it was mostly Chosu. They were known to be highly disciplined. Again, very different than the way the Satsuma are being shown here. And they had picked up a lot of Western-styled weapons and military technique. Now, in the last podcast, we talked about that, how like a lot of this story right now is the fading of the samurai and the embracing of technologies from the West in Japan. The Kahite, interestingly enough, were disbanded in 1868, which is the year that we kind of think that this is. So, or I'm sorry, this is 1878. So the Kahite had already been disbanded for like 10 years at this point. Their total enlistment was 622 men from 1863. But Yamagata Arimoto used this as an important influence, the example of these soldiers, the militia, as an example of the power of just going out instead of like quote unquote growing samurai, and waiting for these elites to become like highly trained warriors. He used them as like a case study to show the importance of the influence on the development of the Imperial Japanese Army instead of like a ton of samurai to do their fighting. And this is what made him basically the father of universal military conscription, meaning that anybody could become a soldier. It doesn't just have to be limited to samurai. He had a very strong political career as well as a military one. He was the twice elected prime minister of Japan. He was an elite member of the Genro, which were an elite group of senior statesmen that dominated Japanese politics after the Restoration period. He was like I said, he was the chief architect of the Empire of Japan's military and its ideology going forward. So he's one of the most influential like military figures on modern day Japanese military. So he modernized the fledgling army. He modeled it after the Prussian army, and he began conscription in 1873. And we're in what's the year again? 1878. So for 5 years, military conscription's been a thing. And you're starting to see, like with the sword-bearing people and stuff like that, you're starting to see that anybody can become a member of the army, and that it's not necessarily seen as good in this anime because those guys were just thieves and rogues and ruffians that wanted the power, you know what I mean, and not necessarily noble like our friend, the main character, Samurai. So it's really interesting because even though he's like that, he's actually like, even though they're on friendly terms and everything else, you can see why he wouldn't want to join a band like that, you know what I mean, and join someone that's sort of like, well, he has a lot of admiration for him, sort of, and respect for him on both sides. He's the antithesis of Hiruma. He's the opposite. He represents everything that Hiruma doesn't, you know what I mean? That there's no necessarily nobility and training and lifelong like investment to be had in a samurai that anybody can just become part of the army. So, but that being said, you can also see the mutual respect. This is somebody that respected his rivals. There was an end of a war where Saigo Takamori of Satsuma, again, Satsuma, not his area, which is the other side, Chosu. And I apologize again for mauling the pronunciations. But he was on the other side of it, and you can see here that like he had a rival called Saigo Takamori, and there was a rebellion led by that person, which was former comrade, and his severed head was brought to Yamagata, and you know what I mean. He had his rival and his former comrade head, you know what I mean, that he had to go to war with in his hands, and he ordered it washed, and he held the heads in his arms and pronounced a meditation on the fallen hero. So like his rival's head was brought to him, and he had it washed and took care of, and then like held it up as like the head of a fallen hero, even though it was his rival. So he's someone that has a lot of respect for his enemies too, and you see that kind of nobility and that rising power in him because he went on until like the 1920s or something like that. And then he lost power because he disagreed with someone on a really important point. I forget what it was, but then he was kind of like lost favor and lost a lot of his power, and then died years later, but of natural causes, I believe. So there's a lot packed into that guy. Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot packed into him saying no too. That I thought was kind of fascinating when I started looking at the historical implications. And he did have a little mustache in the back in the day too, if you look at photos of him.
I saw a little bit of that, and thank you for spelling that out. Okay, that's interesting. I guess on that note of that character, I have expected him to attack Kenshin after he said no. I legitimately have expected him to attack. But it's kind of interesting that I guess in multiple ways he knows that if he attacked, he'd probably be knocked out. So it probably wouldn't be beneficial for him to go after somebody who doesn't want anything to do with him in the first place now.
He also doesn't really give him a reason to attack. Like, why would he bother attack?
Well, he wanted him to come back to help with the army, and I feel like that's more of a reason for him to attack, just out of like anger. But
and historically, like I said with the severed head story, like historically he was not the vindictive type. He was the type that like chose like a peaceful resolution when he could. So it was interesting to see that, you know what I mean? That, like one of his most famous moments are reflected here in that. But it's also interesting the power dynamic that those people that he defeated, while they were the police and they represent law and order, he's way above them in authority. And those people were embarrassed, because he didn't kill anybody. He just defended himself and the people around him. Those people and he also says, I can see from the faces of the villagers that which side was wrong here. So he knows that like he loses popularity. All he has to lose, if he enforces this, he arrests a friend of his, like someone that he respects dearly and has a deep respect for. And he supports the rival faction of him, Satsuma, which is the rival faction of his. It's the other branch that was super powerful out of the Imperials. And he loses the respect of the village, which isn't much, but he still has nothing to gain by like upholding what the rival faction was trying to do. They were wrong. They're the rivals, you know what I mean? And this guy's his friend, whether he says yes or no. So there's not a lot of reason for him to use his power to. And also, he says that sword's never going to hurt anybody anyway. It's it's not the type of weapon that can kill anyone. It's not really a sword. So he even has the loophole excuse in place. You know what I mean? That like he didn't hurt anyone, and the sword's not built to hurt anyone. So there's nothing for him to gain, and he's too smart for that, in my opinion.
No, I get all that, but I thought he was just going to, to me, it's like in military, any fictional situation, the big guy comes down to you and tells you that you're going to fight for him. You don't really get a choice. But I guess in a situation, I shouldn't be thinking in those terms, because, Homura could easily stop anyone who tries to put a hand on him in the first place.
That's the other thing. Could he make him do it?
That's kind of where I was kind of like, I probably shouldn't be thinking in those terms. But I guess the whole relationship that he had with him, when he shows up, the first, whenever Homura, after he knocks everybody else down, he sees him in the distance. You see his expression change from glee to sudden sadness, almost like, why are you here? Type of like, what, I thought I got away from you. His face was not that, when he first saw him, was not the face of somebody that was glad to see him. So that was also intriguing. Again, another thing about Kenshin's past. I mean, even Kaoru brings up that it's like you know, she's looking at him with a you know, like a sad expression on her face, and he's like looking back at her like, you look like you want to ask me something, and then she triggers back to like, you probably have a reason for not talking about your past, and she just completely just rubs it off, even though it's clear that she wants to ask him about like what he did in the past. And then after that situation with the, you know, with the ruffians, and learning a little bit about him and his past, not a lot, just a tiny bit, comes to the, you know, the conclusion that, you know, he isn't a bad person. He wouldn't turn his sword on anybody who didn't deserve it. I mean, they talk about Homura saying that, you know, he's killed people in the name of justice, but it's clear that Kenshin did not believe that. Anytime he killed somebody, he killed them as a swordsman. He didn't kill them, even though his acts were definitely in the name of peace. I don't think he believed what he was doing was peaceful.
Yeah. I think even if he believed it back then, he was fighting with samurai, and now he's fighting with, he would be fighting as an, you know, an enlisted man.
I'm almost certain he probably believed in what he was doing back in the day. I mean, if you take how he was fighting in the very first episode, the very beginning of the episode, when we saw him in his blue gi or whatever, his blue clothes, his blue shirt, he looked serious, determined. It looked like nobody was going to stop him. His expression at that time contrast how he looks now. Like he apparently was like, at that time he was determined. Now he's just wanting to live. It's basically what I'm gonna say. It's like everything about him is so much different.
Enlightenment almost. Don't you feel like that a little?
Did
he reach some sort of state of enlightenment? Like he had a revelation in his life about how he was gonna live, and he got a level of peace from it.
I mean, yeah, he probably found something out that he probably wasn't happy with, and it probably had something to do with the Imperial Army in the first place. Yeah, something happened to him. He achieved something in his, I wouldn't say 10 years, because he was looking for 10 years, so in his like a little bit of time with the Imperials and fighting for them and then leaving, he learned something and he left. But yeah, I mean, like, again, like, they're really not harping on it, but hammering on, like, Kenshin has some, you know, bodies in his closet, quote unquote, that that they're gonna, I guess, slowly reveal over time. I mean, in the very first episode, they have Kenshin talk about like how he doesn't believe swords are truly, you know, like he doesn't believe in the life-giving sword thing. He thinks it's a nice notion, and he would like to believe it, but he's done too much and seen too much to believe in that now. And then we see here where we learned that apparently what Kenshin was doing was supposed to be helping the country, but apparently he didn't really believe that's what he was doing, or at least he doesn't believe that's what he was doing now. Probably back in the day, he probably believed what he was doing, what he believed in when he was doing, but now he doesn't think that what he was doing when he was younger was the right thing. So like he had something in his philosophy changed at some point, about why he was like using his sword. Because apparently before it was a cutting sword, now it's not. And apparently he had it forged recently, or at least not recently, where like at some point before he started wandering, as Jock called him, a hobo.
You're gonna keep going back to that. I see how it is.
I'm sorry, you're not wrong, but at the same time, I just never thought I've ever heard of somebody who's capable of fighting, and but he's wandering, and he's capable, you know, he's capable of defending himself, but he's just wandering. I never thought about it as a hobo, and I'm just like, that's really, really wrong. But at the same time, it's like, I guess it's the closest thing you could compare him to. The guy's a powerful hobo.
Do you want me to like walk it back and be like no hobo or something like that? Or
Really? You know we're gonna move on. I saw what you did there. I'm not gonna let you have it. But but yeah, he pretty much turns down the invitation to go back to being, you know, the Imperial Army, a part of the Imperial Army. The guy tries, you know, says like, if anybody calls you a manslayer, you know, I will just, and he's like, use your authority to tell them to shut up. I mean, that's not what he said, but it's obviously what he was getting at.
yeah,
Uh,
which reveals his true colors and like what he's really from, and and the other guy was like basically like, you know, that's exactly what I don't stand for. You just nailed it, you know. So he
yeah,
kind of, and he respected it. He's like, I see what you get, you know.
I mean, based on that reaction though, he's like, he was shocked that he had that reaction to him, because it was clear when he saw Kenshin he was really happy, but Kenshin was not happy to see him, even though apparently he did not see that expression. So like, he pretty much saw what he wanted to see, and he's hoping that he was gonna come back.
Yeah.
Surprised that he managed to evade him for 10 years. I guess that's probably why Kenshin wanders. He doesn't want to be tracked down.
He's definitely got a lot of people that maybe would appreciate a chance to take a shot at him.
Hey, so speaking of the whole manslayer thing and the whole, like, you know, telling people that, you know, he's not fat. They bring up the fact that he got the name because of how many people he had killed, you know, under, you know, in the name of the Imperial Army. And but somebody brought up that, you know, with that name and seeing what he is like, you would never get that impression that he was that guy. You know, that guy was killing people, you know, without a
Right.
second thought. And that's true. Genshin's character right now does not give off that, you know, as that as that one sword bearer police, which he brought in the notes here, that, you know, it sort of needs to like kill somebody every now and then to keep his edge sharp.
Oh, um, shoot, where is that name? Lieutenant Ujiki. I'm gonna
Usually
try.
brings up that you know, someone needs to slay a man every so often to keep his senses sharp. That is totally not Kenshin. His senses are as sharp as ever, and I would say that the more people get in his way, he'll get sharper senses over the course of the show.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a. I forget what the male equivalent of a Mary Sue is, but like, it's not like we ever see him practice or anything.
I mean, I don't know if he would really necessarily need to practice based on just what he's displayed here. Unfortunately, these aren't skills. The things he displayed at this point aren't really skills of a person in the middle of a midlife crisis or trying to fight to save his life. He's just more like protecting people to the best of his ability.
I
Unfortunately,
could also. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I could also walk that back and say, well, we haven't seen him like exactly practice. We've seen him like do 2 real life applications in battle, like in the last couple days. So I mean, while he's maybe not practicing, he's used his skills in a direct life experience twice already.
not that I know this, and I really don't actually know this, but like, it's possible that he's training at night. You know, he doesn't seem the type of guy that, like, I'm not saying he doesn't sleep, but I'm just saying, like, he doesn't seem the type of guy that would probably, like, if he feels like he needs to hone something.
Oh god, I would have thought he sleeps like a baby. Like he seems like nothing bothers him on the outside.
Yeah, that's
He
the
gets
weird thing. He doesn't. He comes off as like, he comes off not airheaded. He just like, he's like Goku if you turn his personality up to a 20. It's like it's that easygoing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like if he took his personality and turned it to a 20, you know, it's just like nothing would bother him. You probably couldn't sneak up on him when he was asleep. Like the only way you probably could fight him is if you took his sword away. But even then, it's not a guarantee.
Oh, I doubt that he's weak without his sword.
You never know. I mean, like, I'm not saying he is, and it's not saying I don't really know this. I'm just saying, like, you know, ironically, it'd probably be the best way that you have a better opportunity to attack him, because
Yeah.
like swords have reach, and we already know that he's quick. um his senses are not dull, for sure. For sure not dull. We don't know how
Yeah.
long he's gone without killing anybody. That's the other thing. Um at this point we know he's killed people, but at this point we also know he stopped killing people too, so I'm not sure how long he's gone without doing that.
How long it been since you killed a man? That's what we should be asking right now.
July 22nd, 1989.
Good Lord. You had to live through the 80s. I'm so sorry. I would have killed him then too.
But but yeah, like Kenshin walks away with Kaoru. He has that little revelation about his character, and I think he says like one last thing, and it's about when he's back at the house after picking up the stuff that he needed on the grocery list for Kaoru. He thinks about Yahiko, and he's like he thinks about it because like his like coin purse falls out of his coat. He brings it up. He like, Yahiko, if the Sword Abolishment Act hadn't been put into place, Yahiko would have been a great samurai. Which is interesting considering that he hasn't really been interacting with him all that much. He only had like one interaction with him, and that's when he took his money, his wallet, from his
But doesn't he kind of like don't they show him kind of watching him across the pond for a second?
when they
I
first
think
interacted?
he sees the moment. I want to say like they show him directly witnessing the moment from across the water of him giving the thing back.
I mean, did he see that when he gave that on that purse to that lady? I don't know if he did.
I think he did, yeah. I'm trying to see where I can find that right now.
I thought that was just a flashback of him thinking of him. I didn't think he actually saw that.
I'm watching now to see. I feel like he saw it happen. So you see he bends over and his own wallet falls out when he's coming back from chores. He says, "That kiddo," and he has a flashback. I'm trying to see it. I almost swear I saw him. And then he looks up. So start around 1932. And you'll see he looks up and then they cut over to the scene of him giving it back. And I would say it's sort of implied, but it's really hard. He's narrating over him giving the thing back.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that just could have been from his first interaction. I don't know if he. I don't know if he saw
I don't know
that.
if they're telling. I don't know if they're telling the audience. Like they're doing the two things, him speaking and looking at the same time. He's looking off into the distance, and it's hard to tell. It probably did not literally see it, but there was like. It's if nothing else, it's almost like the narrative telling us that this is what he saw in him. Do you know what I mean? As he's doing it, this is what
I mean, I could buy that he saw this. He saw this in him, but at the same time, it's like such a quick interaction with him. I mean, the kid literally just got irritated and stormed off. Now, granted, because Kenshin's a character, and characters like Kenshin have clairvoyance.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they have clairvoyance. He saw in him the ability to wield a sword. And Prince said that it's the prohibition hadn't been put into place, he would have made a great samurai when he was older. I thought that was intriguing, and even if just the short interaction you have with him. But I guess that could also mean that Kenshin's a good judge of character. He's also, because he's a high level. He's like, based on little things he's done, he's on the level of swordplay that we haven't, that is, that's very, very up there. Like, you have to be on his level to fight him on an equal playing field. The fact he can see that in this kid that there is potential for him to really hone his ability. It's like, if only, the prohibition, hadn't been put in place, he would have loved to have seen him, pick up a sword. They also see that Yahiko wants to actually, pick up a sword because he's swinging a tree branch around pretending he has a samurai sword.
Yeah, it's like a very small tree branch too, which I was amused by.
He also used that as like he's a kid just playing around with a sword stick, but I'm pretty sure that's not what that is. This is, he has the desire to want to, learn how to use a sword. He's also not a bad kid. He's in a bad situation with the Yakuza, and because his father. And these characters, like, Japan really likes to put kids with really bad parents. I noticed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Yakuza's father probably isn't all that bad. He probably got something probably happened with him, and he got. It's possible that maybe something happened with Yakuza's mother that he doesn't know about. And possibly they got into debt, and that's kind of what happened. And they pretty much, I mean, the Yakuza aren't, they're not good people. There's a good chance that he probably did something that made his debt escalate to the point where he couldn't pay it back.
Yeah, I mean, there's something you're rooting for him, and he says no, I'm not going to pay it back now. It seems like, if anything, he's frustrated that like he's inherited debt that he has nothing to do with his actions or power to prevent it.
Yeah, Yaku's like looking over at the water, and then he gets jumped by the two hooligans. I'm gonna say that he owes money to every day, and essentially they beat him up and send him on the floor, and then they which I will say this, I really wish I had like realized that they were Yakuza, because like I didn't know that cutting fingers off was a thing. Well, the pinky specifically was a thing that they did.
Yeah, because after they threatened it, I was looking at his hand, and I know this is a dead end. I was looking at his hand, wondering if those bandages were connected to anything, because I had read about the ritual where they cut off a pinky if you as a punishment or as a penance. And I noticed the guy had bandages all over one of his hands, and I'm like, well, what's that all about? But then, with that in mind, I look at the end when after they're done beating him, and the camera moves over to his hand, like almost like, why would it move over to his hand given what we know about the Yakuzas, unless they were thinking about cutting off a finger? So it struck me as especially interesting that they had that pan over, because I think it's because what they're suggesting, even if it doesn't actually happen in the next episode or something, I think what they're suggesting there is that the next obvious solution was we're thinking about cutting off that.
I'm just looking, trying to say I can't get the frame in which the Yakuza's hand is like
Focused on. The screen rolls off of him when he's laying on the ground with his hand like where he dropped the stick, and then they've been beating him for a while, and he doesn't like his attitude, and he's glaring back defiantly, and he says, I don't like you, you're too cheeky. This is as good an opportunity as any. So if you start around,
he still has his pinky. Yeah, that's really weird.
Yeah. So if you start around 2107, you'll see that the camera pans up to his hand where he's dropped the stick, and it shows his whole hand there. And he goes, I'll just take my time and show you who is the master here. And then the last thing you see in the episode is the hand focused on his thing. When he's walking up, if you're talking about the other guy's hand, when he's walking up around 2024, you can his fingers because his hand is looped into his belt, and it's covered in a bandage or something like that, but you can see his hands are spread out, and you can count all 5 of them there pretty easily. There's a couple other scenes where you can stop on frame and count it, but that's something.
I got what I needed. It's possible that these two aren't really Yakuza, they're just using, the name. I mean, it isn't uncommon that that people would use names. We've already seen it in the first episode.
Yeah, but if it looks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, it's probably a duck.
I mean, you say that, but at the same time, these guys could just be pretending to be Yakuza. That they're not saying that they're good people or misunderstood. I'm just saying that it's possible that these kids wanted clout, or these guys wanted clout, and they wanted money. They saw an opportunity to pick on a kid that's already down on his luck. Because they could pick on anybody else, but they're picking on specifically him.
But does he specifically owe them the money, or does he owe the organization? I feel like these guys are more like thugs for a large organization than like specific people.
I guess, I mean, now you said that, they kind of just make. But at the same time, it's like these guys. I mean, again, I don't know what the vibe Yakuza is supposed to give off, but it's just like, to me, it's like these two could just be maybe they're incredibly low level and they're not supposed to be doing this, but they are. Again, picking on a kid that they do know owes the money to their boss, but because they know that he's down on his luck and he hasn't fought back, that they can just pick on him.
More importantly, they know they can get money from him. You know what I mean? More importantly than he owes them money, they know that they can get the money. So I would put that first. You know what I mean? Here's someone that we can exploit.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, they know they'll get money from him. It just like, to me, it just seems like they're picking on him specifically for some strange reason. Because I mean, like Yakuza, I don't think they'll send the same person back to collect money from you. Was it the first person failed?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out. Like, I think these two, especially that one guy with the brown, the brown clothes on, he seems to be like very appalled at what's happening right now and isn't doing a dang thing to stop it. It's clear that he doesn't like what he's seeing. That's why I had the strangest feeling that I don't know if these guys are really Yakuza. It's like, I mean, granted, that doesn't really mean anything. He's probably just the guy who's like having an appall. He's just weak-willed. But I don't know. It's a possibility. I don't really know. I mean, yeah, either way, it doesn't really matter. They're using the Yakuza name. They're beating on Yahiko right now because he doesn't have the money. And because Yahiko wants to cut ties with him. Kind of interesting too, because apparently Yahiko, all the way up to this point, had been doing exactly what they said. Until he met Kenshin. And that one interaction he had with, two interactions he's had with them, changed his mind.
Which is kind of cool.
Not necessarily that cool, but it's just kind of like this entire scene is implicating that he's been doing this willingly the entire time. But yeah, that's interesting.
It's kind of cool. I mean, you could say changed, or you could say inspired. You know what I mean? Like you found a role model. Saw a story of a good person that made him want to become a better person. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, they decided to cliffhang on the hand. Like you were talking about him missing a finger. Yeah. I sure hope that does not happen. I hate that they cliffhang like, because I was like, dang it, why don't cliffhang? I mean, this show does not have it.
It's almost definitely what happened.
I hope they don't cut his finger off.
I mean, I don't think they're not going to cut his finger off. I think Himura is going to like show up, but Himura's got a pretty good idea of like the underground right now. He's been looking around. He just like captured a whole like gang full and left them tied up at the door of the police station. You know what I mean? Which is also incidentally another reason that they might want to let him hang around the city and not arrest him. I think that like this is a good opportunity for the hero to make himself into a hero, and that there's a good chance that might happen. So
I guess
I don't know. He's an inspirational character. It fits in a lot of situations. Kaoru is trying to build her dojo, and she's now got Himura in there. Himura has been an inspirational character like throughout the whole thing so far, like except for the very first scene when we see that he basically causes a bloodbath. Himura has been like showing a lot of respect to her, but also like a really gentle spirit in general. Like when he apologizes to Kaoru for losing her hair ribbon, like after all that stuff that he just did and all the honor that was piled up on him, like one of the most famous military people in the world, like, and also greatest politicians came up and offered him a role, and he peacefully turned it down after like defeating like 27 men with a blunted sword. You know what I mean? Without injuring any of them, without killing any of them. He's setting himself up like they need someone to join the dojo. And they need another way to connect with this kid because the kid's been watching him and not approaching him since then. So if he shows up now and saves him, the kid basically joins the dojo, right? Like that's the next logical step. And then they start building up. Then like I know I'm stepping out of the third wall here, but like I'm breaking the fourth wall here, but then like...
I was stepping out of the third wall? That's a new expression.
I'm sorry, I'm breaking the fourth wall now, but like the writers need a reason to bring him in too. You know what I mean? And that would be the reason that like he interferes before they like... Because right now they're going to beat the living crap out of him and cut off his fingers, so somebody needs to come help.
No, I agree with you. I guess what I want to say before we, end here, because at the end of the episode, I want to bring something up that I didn't didn't think about it till just now, and I an interesting thing to kind of talk about the first episode, but I guess we can talk about it right now. Um, you bring up that Himura saved Kairo's dojo, Kairo's dojo, going under because like his name, his ex-military name was being used, to cause destruction. Like, my question is, how did Kenshin even know that this fake guy was here?
How did who know?
How did Kenshin Himura, how did he know that this fake Batsusai was even sitting here and squatting using his name? To me, it's like, I get that, word travels fast, and, I don't even think newspapers exist right now in this era. It could be, I don't know. But the only way I would think that he would even find out that this person was sitting here would be word of mouth, but even that's like 1 in a million. I get that Kenshin doesn't stay in one spot for too long, but it seems kind of serendipitous that he just stumbles into the one city that where the guy he was looking for had been, because it was clear that he'd been looking for him. Like, when he was wandering about, like he had been, that was one of the things he was looking for.
I think it's just a plot device. I think that it like helps talk about his name a lot and make you wonder like about his past. It was good writing from the perspective that like now we know he has a dubious past, and like we're starting to wonder about it as an audience. I don't know if
I
there's
guess
a
it
good
just seems kind of really. I mean, I don't really care about it that much. I just thought it was kind of interesting. It's not something It's not something I thought about. I mean, granted, starting stories is hard, so I'm like, that's why I'm not gonna harp on this. It's just like, it's just kind of funny that he wanders into a town, bumps into a pretty girl, and finds out that this pretty girl is connected to some like scandal going on with somebody using his the name he used to use, and ends up finding out that he's actually in the same city that he just stumbled into.
It's also Tokyo, It's not like he went to Podunk nowhere or something. Like he went into.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's just really freaking weird. Cause like, I mean, it's a 50-50 shot maybe for you finding that guy. It's not like, at least to me, he wouldn't. This guy who's using this name. Granted, this guy wasn't thinking this way. Though if I was him, I would be.
Right.
You're using the name of a really famous and deadly person. You know that, at least at this point, your entire vision of this character is that he doesn't take kindly, to people. He doesn't like. He isn't a nice guy. Like, he's not. He's not this bumbling idiot that just stumbles upon and starts yelling "hello" several times at your door. To me, if I was using this guy's name, I would be running around to not get caught, just in case. Because there's a chance to run into him.
He is operating in the neighboring city.
But that's still like one spot though. Like, to me, it's like, and again, I'm not gonna harp on this. I'm just saying it's kind of funny that Kenshin, if this is a plot device, I get it. But it's like, Kenshin just wanders into the exact city that this guy is, and it makes me wonder, is like, is this why he's truly wandering around? He thinks people are using his name in vain, and he wants to stop this, or he just happened to find out that somebody's using his name and he wants to stop them. It just like. It's just kind of funny because it doesn't seem like when he wandered into town, Tokyo specifically, he was looking for anybody. Not until we found out he was looking for somebody.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of funny to me because it's like, okay, I get this is anime. I can't really dissect this much more than that. But still, it's just kind of weird to me. Now he's here, and now he's like, obviously, there's a plan with him involved in the dojo now. It's just kind of. I thought about this. I was like, this is kind of funny. Just randomly walks right into Tokyo, and now he's achieved whatever he set there to do. But now he doesn't want to wander anymore, which is even funnier to me. He's like, he's a wanderer.
He didn't say he didn't want to wander anymore. He said, "Oh, for the time being, I'll stick around."
Well, specifically, he said get tired of wandering as often as he was, which was funny. I was like, okay, this is really weird. How long have you actually been walking around and not having a home?
Yeah.
It was like, if you're getting tired of it, it was like, okay, you obviously didn't just start doing this. Um, but did
But
he also have his own money? No, I think he has a wallet.
there's a wallet, but if you hear, there's one point where he moves it, and you hear like jingling noises in it, like maybe it's not that much money. That it
I
sounded
get
like
all
coins.
that. I just like
It sounded
it
like
just.
coins,
I'm just like like
right?
how poor are you? It's like is my next question is like okay.
He doesn't give up his whole wallet too, which made me wonder, like, how confident are you that you're gonna be okay?
Well, I mean, obviously he's not afraid of people jumping him. I mean, we've already seen that twice now. But it's like it's just really weird. I mean, I guess I'm asking questions about his character, but at the same time, I'm just like, huh. But again, he's like, he appears to be an idiot, but in reality, he's not, and that's the best part about him. Plus, he's got this really weird past that we know nothing about.
Yeah, they're setting up a lot of questions, which is fun. And they had a cliffhanger episode here, so you want to see the next episode, which is fun.
I get that, but it makes me angry.
You don't like wondering something is not a fun thing for you.
It's not that I don't like wondering. I just don't like when, like, for me, especially in something action oriented, like they cut you off in the middle of an action sequence. It's something that I've gotten used to, but it really ticks me off because like I'm really involved in it. I'm not paying attention to the time, and then next time on Dragon Ball Z, dang it!
Yeah, but then then like Dragon Ball Z, like they do next time, but then the title of the next episode would tell you exactly what's happening. You're like, next time on Dragon Ball Z, and then like the name of the episode is like Frieza dies or something. You're like, the planet explodes, and you'll be like, oh, okay. So
Well,
I
this
pretty much
planet didn't really explode though in that episode, did it? I don't. I think even Team 4 Star makes fun of that.
yeah, I just think they really break the tension sometimes with their episodes
I mean, I
names.
get that. I really wish that they were going to end an episode. They didn't do it in the middle of some important part of a character's development or whatever like that. Like to me, it's like Yahiko being beat up and having his pinky being threatened to be cut off. It's like, don't cut it off there. I get that they want you to come back, but it's like to me, I'm already invested. I'm not gonna not come back. So I'm just like, I'm fighting between this. Like, they want people who are already not invested to come back. They're not doing this to aggravate you, but in turn, it's aggravating me.
So speaking of giving up the story, like the next episode is called Kashin Ryu Reborn. You must already know who Kashin Ryu is, right?
No, I gotta say anything because
Okay. Because whoever that is, if it's like a warrior character or something, that could be the one that saves the kid. Someone's gonna save the kid. So it like
yeah,
the
I'm not gonna
kids.
say anything. I'm gonna hold my tongue. You already get mad at me for like leading you on,
Sorry,
so I'm not gonna do that.
the kid's finger is not getting cut off, and if that's a fighter, then it could be that character is introduced and comes and saves him instead. But somebody's gonna come save him. I have very little doubt in my mind that someone is on the way to help.
Yeah, we'll end off on that one. I can't like I have ideas, but these ideas aren't like so far. Again, I was shocked that Yahiko was being introduced so early on. I'm like, huh. I don't remember Yahiko being the first character they introduced outside the first two we get introduced to. So I'm like, because like it's him or another character that I was shocked that he's shown in the intro. If you look at it, I thought he was next, but apparently he's not. At least not
Yeah.
yet. So I was very shocked.
They have a lineup in the intro where they start panning across a bunch of characters, and they show Kaoru and then Himura and then Yahiko in that order, and then the next character is like a tall warrior character. And my guess is that Kashin Ryu is that character. But isn't Kashin Ryu is a style, isn't it? Am I just
That is like
screwing
why
up?
I wasn't saying much because I'm almost certain that it is just one of Kenshin's
Dash Ryu makes
attacks.
it a style. Yeah.
This
And
one has
actually,
attacks, so it's like, eh.
hang on.
No, I mean, it's still honest. I mean, I don't think that they would have a name like that of a character. But then again,
No, 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 no.
what do I
They
know?
say Kashin Ryu.
Mm.
They even say Kashin Ryu in the episode twice. So, yeah. And they've said it in previous episodes. I mean, they've said it in episode 1. They talk about the Kashin Ryu as a style. So, I'm sorry, I'm completely messing it up. Whoever they're going to introduce, there's a good chance they're going to introduce a new character next episode. And if they do, that might be the character that rescues. But I believe somebody is going to rescue me.
Also, I guess before we end this episode, that character, the tall warrior character, I'm gonna be honest, I do not remember the weapon that he had with him. I honestly thought he was a street brawler, and maybe I'm remembering something. I don't know. It's just I don't remember him having a weapon on his shoulder. I don't know. That's a spoiler, and I probably shouldn't have said anything. So my bad.
You're fine.
I'm probably misremembering him, which is really weird because I can't remember. This anime is tripping me up because I don't remember like, if I was reading the manga or watching the show at some point. I feel like I've done both, but like they've blended in so freaking well that I'm like, I'm just like I can't separate what because I know the manga is the original idea. The anime that came out of that again was from an era that, whatever reason, when animators got caught up with the source material, and because the source material was still going on at the time, they decided to veer off and make their own canon. And a lot of people didn't enjoy that. But then you have shows like Dragon Ball Z that had that exact same problem, but all they really did was just make filler. So I mean, I guess on that note, before we end this off, what do people think about Piccolo not being able to drive being canon? Because I find that strange.
He's an alien.
Yeah, but Piccolo drove. Like, I mean, that's kind of like where I'm very confused with the filler and canon arc line with that show because like,
how much time are you going to spend driving when you can fly? It's a completely the culture of driving, like the culture. Like you have to understand people. You have to understand like the culture of humans. You have to like.
But wouldn't Piccolo have that knowledge because his father, was on Earth, studying humans?
He doesn't seem very much like his father. I don't know. I don't think that stands too well because I don't think he's very much like his father.
I don't say he has to be like his father, but I feel the knowledge of his like father would have transitioned into him.
Yeah.
I guess enough of that before I'm stalling for no real reason. We'll be reviewing next episode 3, next week. This has been a really good start to a show. I'm very happy that I actually, because I've been avoiding the show for a while since I knew it came out, but I completely forgot that it was even out. So it's like it kind of evolved into a really good storm.
It's pretty good so far. I'm enjoying it.